My book is the man that I am, the confused man, the negligent man, the reckless man, the lusty, obscene, boisterous, thoughtful, scrupulous, lying, diabolically truthful man that I am. Lawrence Clark Powell, librarian and writer, whom I first met in Dijon when I was an instructor in the Lycée Carnot, a very dear friend and a very understanding critic of my work. Anna Eastnin, author of the now famous diary, an inspiration to and a protectress of so many striving artists, including yours truly, Henry Miller. Lawrence Durrell, author of the Alexandria Quartet and other well-known books, came to see me in Paris at about the age of 23 or 4 as a young writer and who has remained an everlasting friend. Joe Gray, ex-pug, veteran actor, boon companion. In any great society, there ought to be room for those who disagree with the views of society, that they should be able to live on the fringe, these people who don't believe. If the society is a great one, what is it to fear from a few men who are in disagreement with it? Why don't you let these men refuse to do all the things that you think are necessary and important, lead their own lives? What harm can there be to society? Maybe a great deal of good, you know.
His first books earned him little more than the title of High Priest of Obscenity and universal censorship. Now, at 77, after years of defiant struggle and ceaseless creative output, Henry Miller works and lives comfortably in Southern California, having won universal acclaim as a great writer, a great liberator. His many books, he says, are but a history of himself and of his world, the world of a diabolically truthful and most un-American American. Around 1950, I began to turn over to the Department of Special Collections at the Powell Library at UCLA all of my correspondence, existing manuscripts, notes, and memorabilia.
Well, it was in Big Sur that I remember that this whole collection here in the library started. I said to you one time when I'd come up, "What's that carton there?" Why, you said, "That's a bunch of incoming stuff that I'm going to have to burn, get rid of. I'm being swamped." I says, "Let me take it."
Yeah, I remember
That's
this.
how it
I
started.
remember. I know it.
And I just began to come up periodically and take it. Now, my God, it's a colossus of UCLA, isn't it, the
know.
archive?
It seems, yeah.
Here.
Oh, is it?
Oh, yes. Well, file these, Henry. Will you please file these? Ah, yes, traffic. Let me get out my glasses. I want to see what we have here in jurisdiction. Good God. It's a sheet of wallpaper. Where did you buy these papers, Henry? Where did you get these papers?
God, no.
Oh, this must be the cast of characters for what? Days? Capricorn. Capricorn plan.
Yeah.
It's a plan for the Ville de Capricorn. Ideas, obsession, descriptive bits.
Wow.
The old neighborhood, Cézanne settings, father's shop, styles.
Style, let's see. Now that would be...
Dostoevsky for Xerxes Society.
See, you get me? You see what a cunning bastard and a, what shall I say, a cheat and whatnot. Still, I'm thinking what style I can use. Not my own. Do you understand? Not me.
Hampson,
Holy
Harris,
God.
Tagore, Spengler, Anatole France, Somerset Maugham, Dos Passos, Ingersoll and Tolstoy, Romain Rolland, Kropotkin, Sinclair Lewis for rantings.
For rantings. Ranting, you know.
Dreiser for desertion theme. Sherwood Anderson for yearnings and introspection.
How do you like that? That hits me. I don't remember all this.
Henry Miller.
Yeah.
What, for what? What was left?
Yeah. What do I call? Yeah. I had made one attempt to write with a little broken pencil once. Can you imagine? And I wrote a page and gave it up. I said I never would be able to write. Well, but nevertheless, it was in there, in me, and stories and novels I'm writing as I walk, dialogues with characters. And I can remember it. I could say I wrote several books in this period that I worked for my father. Because I did the same thing at night. I walked back again down to that station, do you know? This meant I walked through the Bowery, too, part of the way, do you know? And Union Square and all those... Madison Square Garden, which was a beautiful building then. Do you remember? And then on that walk also, I stopped at a certain shop, a framing shop, where I got interested in painting. Because there I saw my first Japanese prints. I used to stand and I saw reproductions of Chagall, you know, and Utrio and Matisse and all that. That was my first, really, beginnings of interest in painting, do you see? Now, all this time, you know, I think that I'll never be a writer, but I was reading all the current writers of the day, don't you know? For instance, I remember that John Dos Passos was quite a name, I think, then already, but he was not much older than me, or maybe same age. And already he had made it. He had been in the war, and he had written a book about the war, do you recall? And I used to read these men, I say to myself, Jesus, I think I could do as well as that, you know? But never do it, huh? And I'm trying to think then, how did I really? Oh, yes, this is a long while then afterwards. Let's see. All right. While still working for my father, I married. My first marriage, you remember, had a child. And then at night I would come home. I had that big desk, this roll-top desk, you know, which was a pigeonhole desk. This was the desk which had been in the old man's tailoring establishment for the last 50 years, which had given birth to many builds and many groans, which had housed strange souvenirs in its compartments, and which finally I had filched from him when he was ill and away from the establishment. And now it stood in the middle of the floor in our huge, lugubrious parlor on the 3rd floor of a respectable brownstone house in the dead center of the most respectable neighborhood in Brooklyn. And I put all the extra chairs we had around it in a circle, and then I sat down comfortably, and I put my feet on the desk and dreamed of what I would write if I could write. All the pigeonholes were empty, and all the drawers were empty. There wasn't a thing on the desk or in it except a sheet of white paper on which I found it impossible to put so much as a pothook. I would sit there then and write at night, you know. It was nothing any good. I don't think I never even tried to sell any of that stuff, you know. But I was married a few years, I guess, when finally I ran into this Mona in my books in the dance hall, and she used to say to me, look, give up that job, start to write, you know. She pushed me into it. And one day I did quit. I quit like that. Just came in the office one morning. There were 40 or 50 applicants for messenger jobs, and I had my assistant. I said, you tell the boss I'm quitting, and I don't want my salary. That was 2 weeks. I don't want anything. I want to get out. And I walked out, but I had a little briefcase with my... I never forget, I walked up Broadway feeling like the happiest man on earth, that I'm no longer going to work for anybody. That was my idea. Now I'm going to write, do you see? But that was a beautiful walk, looking at all these poor bastards who are working, struggling, selling things, buying things, you know? But then began my 10 years of misery, you know, trying then to sell my work. But as I say, this desire to write must have been strong in me from way back, but I had no confidence in my ability to write. That was the thing. I had absolutely no confidence. Very strange thing. So I began, by writing, I thought I would start, like exercises. I'd write about things I was interested in, people, events. I am a patriot of the 14th Ward, Brooklyn, where I was raised. The rest of the United States doesn't exist for me except as idea or history or literature. At 10 years of age, I was uprooted from my native soil and removed to a cemetery, a Lutheran cemetery, where the tombstones were always in order and the wreaths never faded. But I was born in the street and raised in the street. The post-mechanical open street where the most beautiful and hallucinating iron vegetation, etc. What is not in the open street is false, derived, that is to say, literature. I'd go to meet people. I visited the editor of Funk and Wagnall's dictionary, do you see, and wrote an article, long, beautiful, about words, which I sold to Liberty magazine, that 5-cent magazine. They liked me there. They almost gave me a job as assistant editor. But they paid me, oh, that was fabulous. I think I got $300, which was a big sum in those days. But they never printed it. And I would ask every now and then, it's too good, they said. Too good, how do you like that? Finally, I caught on to the idea of, there were like magazines like Snappy Stories and things. You remember those that were like our Playboy thing in a way today? I wrote one or two, had no luck. I got on to the idea I should send my wife, who was beautiful, send her in with these things. And of course, then they sold. After I sold 2 or 3, I thought, why should I write the new things? I'll go to the back files 10 years, 12 years ago, pull out their own story, and change the beginning and end and the names of the characters, and I'd sell it to them. This is what they loved. It was their own stuff.
I like to think that we had every letter written to you, but no.
Oh, no. I remember 2 big burnings. One in Big Sur when I got married to Lipska.
Oh, my God, I can't stand it.
Yes, and I told her to select the good letters only for that. And you know what? What I meant by good letters were the ones from idiots, crackpots, and those were the interesting. Yeah. She takes them from the professors and the
librarians.
Yeah, right.
Pour it on, man.
And I said, where did I burn them? I could have killed her, yeah.
I know, but my God, a lot survived in spite of
yes,
this.
Oh, yes, and there are more coming all the time.
But the Durrell, those survived. You see, the Durrell, there's a wonderful story, isn't there? That correspondence.
They survived. That's because he kept them.
Yeah,
yes.
He kept him and you kept them. And all the Durrell letters you kept and you sent here early. Certainly.
Listen, I've often thought, though, Larry, that it would be interesting not to have these letters from famous friends who have become famous, but from nobody. To Larry Durrell from Big Sur about influences in my life. It should have been an eye-opener for you to read that chapter in the books in my life. At various times, you've credited me with a live interest in certain writers and thinkers who, to tell the truth, were only passing fancies. My loyalty and admiration, or adoration rather, have been constant for the same men all throughout my life. Whitman, Emerson, Thoreau, Rabelais above all. I still think that no one has ever had a larger, freer, healthier view of man and his universe than Walt Whitman. And there was always Lao Tzu, even before I had read him. He stands there at the back of one's head like the great ancestor, old Adam Cadmus. What's all the fuss about? Take it easy. Sit down. Don't get quiet, or get quiet, rather. Don't think. Think. And from him, the line of Zen masters, which I only got wise to from the Villa Sora days on. When you walk, walk. When you sit, sit. but don't wobble. Of all the writers, it's a funny thing, there are greater writers in my experience than Knut Hamsun, but he's the one who seemed to have touched me the most and influenced me. I keep talking about him all the time, all the time. His women are wonderful to me, and they're all of a kind, of the same kind, I would say. They torture him. They're in love with him, and yet they don't surrender to him, or maybe momentarily, do you know, and that's all. They're always the unattainable ones that he's got, you know.
For his entry in the expatriate directory, Americans Abroad, he wrote,
Born New York City, 1891, no schooling, hobo and wanderer. And in my spare time, I practiced sainthood. Came to Paris to study vice. 4 Avenue Anatole, France, Clichy. April 1932. Dear Emil, no, I don't want to return to America. Nothing but a catastrophe can make me go back. This is my world, and I knew it long, long ago, and I only regret it took so long to make the decision. What a different being I would have been if at 21 I had gone to the Sorbonne, or to Alt Heidelberg, or to Sevilla or Madrid, anywhere but City College. However, it hasn't been too late. I will never become a European, but thank God I am no longer an American. I am one of those things you call an expatriate, a voluntary exile. I have no country, no frontiers, no taxes to pay, no army to fight for, and I adore France. It's getting to the point where I will actually have to earn a living.
Dear Mr. Miller, it is my painful duty to inform you that your services will no longer be required. I tell you frankly that you haven't grasped the job. Perhaps you are temperamentally unfitted for a job dealing almost entirely in figures.
I feel now exactly as all the great vagabond artists must have felt. Absolutely reckless, childish, irresponsible, unscrupulous, and overflowing with carnal vitality, vigor, ginger, etc. Always on the border of insanity, due to worry, hunger, etc. But shoving along day after day. All during this Paris period, prior to tackling Capricorn, I had been enjoying, if I might put it that way, the effect of other men's writing. I was open to any and all influences, especially from the French. I was writing in my head constantly, as they might write, I mean. I was a literary man. I might have written books and not the story of my life. But I remember Tropic of Capricorn.
Yeah.
It began with On the Ovarian Trolley.
Yeah.
And I intended to write 2 or 3 volumes under the title Capricorn. And then I forgot. There was an interim, and I forgot what I was going to do.
You didn't forget because you didn't make lists. My God, if I piled all the lists you've made end to end in this library, you'd have a
What is that now? One of those
that's a
Paris
book of-
notebooks?
Yeah, Paris.
Oh,
Paris
yeah,
notebook.
yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
This kind of thing.
Yeah.
Used to make. I don't know when you ever got time to write because you were always spending your time making lists.
Things to do. Words to use.
Prinkt, kibosh, schlamazel, flummoxed.
Books to read. Places to go. And yet, listen, what I remember about that whole Paris existence is I had more time than I have here in America. I had more time, and I did more things, and I fooled around more, too, and wasted time.
You were in the
But it
millennium
was
and you
a
didn't
wonderful
know it.
waste of time, don't you know? And another life of misery begins, but on a different level and with a different ambience entirely. misery compounded with joy. Here I make the best friends in my life. I had two especially good boon companions who are still alive, still writing, and we are still writing one another. That's Lawrence Durrell and Alfred Perlez, whom I call Alf always. Author of a number of books in French, German, and English, and who saved my life when I was at the point of returning to America or committing suicide. And of course, there was a third person, perhaps more important than the two of them in my life, and that was Anaïs Nin. Anaïs had a home at Louveciennes, an old village about an hour distant from Paris by bicycle. Beautiful home on what was formerly the estate of Marie Antoinette. It was a charming place. And you gave me great help, I remember, because you used to go over my early scripts, you remember, and say, look, don't put all of that. That isn't necessary, you know, and you used to have to fight with me about it because I thought it was important. I thought everything was important. Now, you know, if I had the power, I would reduce everything. I would write the smallest books if I could. If I had to, I appreciate them, you know.
You know, I just finished this book about writing and the writers, and I said that if they would trust, that people could do this if they trusted the artist to do the dreaming, you see, and then instead of taking drugs, say, they watched a painting for a long time, or watched a mobile for a long time, or trusted the artist, or looked at a, you know, a painting very deeply, that they would be set off on their own dreaming.
Instead of what they do now, trying to understand, you mean, with their intellect, the artist
if they just
and his work.
dreamt it. And I always give the example of dreaming about the houseboat, and then getting it, and then writing the stories, and then living in it, and then going on, you see, from first of all, a fantasy.
Yes. Yes.
No, you're right when you say people don't understand what I mean, and then when they say the dream like writing, you know, it's not in life. And I'm always trying to say it's related to the life, it nourishes it.
Yes,
It frees us.
Clichy, May 18th, 1933. Dear Amo, night before in despair, couldn't write, doubts, failure, old age. Morning comes, the bowels move, the earth groans. I don't think about any single thing, but about all things at once. I want to show the world that not all the great surrealists are dead. I want a classic purity, where dung is dung and angels are angels. The Bible a la King James, for example. The glorious, death-dealing Bible that was created when the English language was in flower, when a vocabulary of 20,000 words sufficed to build a monument for all time. Well, here I am. I can write, and I will write, and nobody will deny me. I will write what no man dares to say, and they can take it or leave it, but I think they will take it. But at any rate, I found my voice there in Paris, and I wrote that book, which I guess started all the trouble and the success at the same time. And that was The Tropic of Cancer. Everything that was literature has fallen from me. There are no more books to be written. This is not a book. This is libel, slander, defamation of character. This is not a book in the ordinary sense of the word. No, this is a prolonged insult, a gob of spit in the face of art, a kick in the pants to God, man, destiny, time, love, beauty, what you will.
Henry, did you have the title before the book?
No, I didn't. All titles came later, yeah, right.
From where?
Huh?
From where?
From where? Do you know, I spent many a sleepless night thinking of titles. Oh, I had hundreds of titles for my books, do you know? And I don't remember how I stumbled on Tropic of Cancer. Think of it.
But you were interested in astrology.
Astrology, yeah.
No,
At the
it
time,
wasn't
no.
with astrology then. Because Tropic of Cancer
what
really means
globe.
that zone
Yeah.
from the equator, you know, on the Capricorn underneath it.
Geographical thing.
Oh, yes, I remember. Now it's coming back.
Good.
I was much interested then. This was in Paris. I was very much interested in Chinese philosophy and in numbers, and I had read that great book, what Kaiserling called the famous book in the
Meditations?
what is it? It's a book by which you consult this book and you get an answer to your problem.
Oh, the changes. Yeah, the I
Ching.
Ching. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Now then, how does it come? Oh, yes. Then I began to understand that the crab in China was an important symbol for the reason that it can move in any direction, backwards, forwards, sideways. And that idea intrigued me very much. Then also I thought, all right, it's a cancerous world I'm dealing with. Do you see? Those things entered into it. Yeah, I remember.
Well,
But it was a great find. It was a great title, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It proved to be, huh? Funny.
Very much.
Many people said all my titles are good, you know.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, they're all good. It is now the fall of my second year in Paris. I was sent here for a reason I have not yet been able to fathom. I have no money, no resources, no hopes. I am the happiest man alive. A year ago, 6 months ago, I thought that I was an artist. I no longer think about it. I am. After Clichy, I moved into the Villa Sura, where I had a studio and some real comforts. The street itself was famous for harboring many well-known painters, sculptors, musicians. Here, I finished the third or fourth revision of Tropic of Cancer, wrote Tropic of Capricorn, Max and the White Phagocytes, Aller Retour, New York, finished Black Spring, and began the Hamlet letters with Michael Frankel. I could always see you as the very young man who knocked at my door at the Villa Sura. You came in, you peeked in, you put your head in the door, the crack, I can see you, you know, I grabbed you and hugged you, and you'll always remain to me like that. As you get to be 70 years old and I'm 95 or 100, I'll still think of you.
I was particularly struck by his greeting because after hugging me, he said, "Let me take a look at you." Then he pulls up my trouser leg and says, "Christ, you're built like a tree." The most original way of being greeted by the chef.
But also I remember that first impression was he was like a boxer. He wasn't exactly a bantam. He was heavier than that, yet he was light. But he had that light-footed quality, agility and everything, and a little bit of pugnacity in his, which he still has in the chin.
Did you have to deal with publicists?
Yeah, it was wonderful. He always struck me as a boxer.
Oh, no, it's rebirth, germinal, miraculous, sex.
Yeah.
Art is always miraculous. The world of Lawrence, a plan. My God, what's this?
Oh, and let me tell you a little story about that. I got so involved, and I could not get him off my mind. It was an obsession. I read his books, and I read about him, and I used to beg the powers that be. I'd raise my stop dictating to me. But I'd made these big charts, and then I got so involved, I got lost in the forest, contradicting myself, and I was all mixed up, and I decided to forget it. That was the only great failure that I ever had. See, the only book I never finished, you might say. Of course, I want to tell you another thing about all this. What is this, microcosm? A lot of this came about through knowing Otto Rank. I must tell you that. Jesus, I was filled, and I was reading his works. And The Trauma of Birth, you know, Art and Artist, all those books he had.
Yeah.
You were interested in Rank because he was interested in
Well,
history,
Rank-
in
Rank,
art, and anthropology,
I
and
set
everything.
apart
Yes,
Rank,
from the
you
others.
know, from
You weren't
the others.
interested in him as an analyst. You were interested in
As
his
a-
knowledge.
Yes, right. And in his failure as a human being, do you know,
Yes.
again, It was so tragic. I'll tell you one thing. You were into this, right? I think
very
through
deeply.
psychoanalysis.
Yes.
And from your talk, Eduardo, everybody's talk about analysis and
Yes,
dreams.
dreams and all that.
I began to dream heavily,
Yes.
violently. And when you
Yeah.
got it all together, I'd get up out of bed in my pajamas and record it. And not only record that dream, but all the associations that came up with it. And that was what was more important.
That was Into the Night Life.
And
That
that's
was
what
Into the
this
Night.
book is. This is a part of my dream book.
Of the dream book.
Yeah. Into the nightlife.
You want
Okay.
shade on the book?
Yes.
That's a lovely page, isn't it? I walk along the ocean front, the sand is strewn with human clams, waiting for someone.
Well, that was all that
It is
dream
neither
stuff.
night nor day.
Mm.
This is a wonderful one. The brain pan is like a hamburger steak in a steaming window.
Yeah.
Let's find the pain.
After 10 years in Paris, just before war is declared, I accept Lawrence Durrell's invitation to visit him in Corfu, Greece, where I spend a few marvelous months, again, perhaps the high peak of my life. When I returned from Greece, I immediately sat down and wrote The Colossus of Marusi, which I still think is my best book.
In Japan and Greece, and also something completely different.
But now, Katsimbalist, the Colossus, is he always available? He'll come out.
he's available all the time.
That voice,
yes.
Despite his failing health and
You
everything,
can plot
his bad
him.
leg and all that.
He
nothing
complains,
but
but he really hasn't. If you saw him today,
He's in form.
he's completely unchanged. And his movements are predictable. 11 o'clock a Potsdam, he drinks 5 stoops of lesbian ouzo. Then he has a little meal, a sort of semi-meal, before going on to a very much heavier meal at Zonau's at 2 o'clock. And he gets all these literary problems settled quite easily. But tell me, there's one question here. I was talking to Geeker about it the other night, and he had a theory about why you haven't been back. Because, you know, every time I go back, they say, why the hell are you keeping Miller away? Why isn't he here with you? Why didn't you bring him? Now, how can I bring him?
I know.
Huh?
Yes. Well,
Geeker had a theory.
Yes,
What was it?
it was, I think, a unique experience that you had.
It was indeed. It was a divine experience. It is the morning of the first day of the great peace, the peace of the heart, which comes with surrender. I never knew the meaning of peace until I arrived at Epidaurus. Like everyone, I had used the word all my life without once realizing that I was using a counterfeit. Peace is not the opposite of war any more than death is the opposite of life. The poverty of language, which is to say the poverty of man's imagination or the poverty of his inner life, has created an ambivalence which is absolutely false. No man can really say that he knows what joy is until he has experienced peace. And without joy, there is no life. Our diseases are our attachments, be they habits, ideologies, ideals, principles, possessions, gods, cults, religions, what you please. Good wages can be a disease just as much as bad wages. Leisure can be just as great a disease as work. Whatever we cling to, even if it be hope or faith, can be the disease which carries us off. Surrender is absolute. If you cling to even the tiniest crumb, you nourish the germ which will devour you.
And I think that you can't go back to a divine experience.
That's right. That was a fear also that I had, that I will never find again the same setting, as it were. Also, don't forget that when I did go back to America, in the space of a year or two, I am living in Big Sur, which was an American equivalent of Greece.
Yeah.
Wonderful, the sun, the Pacific, the ocean, you know, everything, forest, and quiet. I was alone, solitude. I had almost recaptured something in America, which is amazing. Right. right?
Well, now I think you can go back, because now it is the past completely, isn't it?
Yes, yes, that's
It's,
true.
it's
Now it's a
completely
question, do I
different.
go back on my own legs or in a wheelchair? When I got back to America, I had that strange feeling that I ought to see my own country once again and look at it with fresh eyes. I'd been away practically 10 years, and I wanted to see what America looked like and if I could like it, because I had left it with no hope of ever returning. It happened then that my friend Abraham Ratner, the painter, and I, we bought a cheap car and we decided to make the tour of America. And all this is recorded in the book called The Air-Conditioned Nightmare.
The publisher's dummy of Leaves of Grass served as his notebook on the trip.
Wherever I went, I saw nothing of interest that would hold me, make me want to settle there. Seemed that everything was done the wrong way, you know, was a wrong attitude. Of course, it's gotten more that way in my mind. The country really is going to hell, in my opinion, don't you know? And going rapidly. Now, I think many people now see that, don't you know? You see, even in the early days, in the midst of relative calm and prosperity, I saw the worm in the apple, like, you know, in this country. The wrong slant toward life, I think, that's all. Materialism, the scientific trend, the importance of the business world, the domination of that world over everything, the lack of aesthetics, you see. Yeah.
Henry, I'll never forget the time after the letter to the New Republic and the stuff began to come in, the clothes.
Yeah. An artist who is non-commercial has about as much chance for survival as a sewer rat. I would be grateful for old clothes, shorts, socks, etc. I am 5'8" tall, weigh 150 pounds, love corduroys.
And I went after you and you said, look, my God, they sent me a tuxedo.
Yeah.
Oh, God, you walked up and down, you were holding the garments like this. What'll I do with it? Oh, I said, wear it. Sometime there will be some affair. Be ready. When you're called, have your tuxedo on. You may get the call any time. You said, no, I'll make a scarecrow of it.
Yeah.
You took it out front, you hung it on the picket fence.
I don't
And it
remember
was
that.
there for a generation.
I don't remember that. Is that right?
Yeah, there it was.
Is
The
that right?
tuxedo scarecrow of Beverly Glen.
But I'll tell you another thing about a tuxedo. When I was in Paris with Fred Perlez, he had a tuxedo that he never wore, you see, 25 years. It was in good condition.
Yeah.
And one night we were drunk, getting time for the men to collect the garbage. I said, let's put it in the garbage pail and see what happens. Wait and see. And sure enough, they came. Oh, look.
You tore me down.
Yeah.
Henry, do you suppose it was that tuxedo they sent to you?
No, I don't. No.
Well, who would send you a tuxedo? Was this it?
Yes, I can imagine. Well, they sent me canes and umbrellas, things like
Canes,
that.
all right,
Why
that
not
makes
bird
sense,
cane?
now.
They sent every
Bird
damn
cane,
thing, you
yeah.
know.
All
Yeah.
Any rate, you used to say, well, look, now here's a list. I would stop by going to work, and you'd be out front. It was kind of like one of those pickups of the mail on the Fast Express. The sacks hung out on a hook.
Yeah.
And the train goes by, and the little hook from the train reaches out and snags it in. Well, I'd go by on the way to work, and there you'd be holding the list out. And I wouldn't stop because I didn't want to be late for work, teacher. And so I'd snatch the list from you, go tearing down to work, and there would be this list of books. Bring me a book on eczema. Bring me a book on the windows of Chartres. Bring me a book on the construction of wheelbarrows.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Bring me a book on nitrogen as a secondary element. Bring me a book on the Place Pigalle.
Listen, you're a fiction writer. You've got that small the way you talk. About 1/10 of this or 100th is true, you know. I know I gave you a list.
Cut.
No. But
Henry,
you know, I'm going to tell you a funny
Henry,
thing.
now wait a minute. Let me interrupt you. You think I'm making fictions. I've kept all those lists.
Oh, really?
They're in the safe
Oh,
deposit
really?
box in the West with you. So all the lists you ever made.
It was at Powell's insistence that he wrote his book on books.
On the cover, on the jacket of Books in My Life, I'll mention some of my favorite authors: Rimbaud, Emerson, Rider Haggard, Nietzsche, D.H. Lawrence, Ailey Four, Krishnamurti, Thoreau, Strindberg, Walt Whitman, Hermann Hesse, Lao Tzu, Céline, Blaise Cendrars, Jean Genot, Proust. I admire your ability to sit down in your pad alone there with your dog Byron, and you can pick up a book and read it. Or you can sit and just sort of dream, go into a reverie. You don't have to have the television on or the radio or whatnot. And this is a great quality in you. You are one of the few people I know, Joe, who buys books. Every week you're showing me 1, 2, or 3 books you have bought, you know. You have a great collection.
Well, I find a lot of inspiration in authors, certain authors that have this quality to, I use the word heal, or metaphysics, or call it what you want. It takes the blows.
You know that Jesus never wrote a line, so they say,
right,
where we have only what is reported to have said. And it's great, because it lasts forever, everything he said. But you notice that so many people are reading books in the hope of getting a truth and getting inspiration and all that. But one of the great books in my life is the second volume of Wasserman's Mauritius case about a Dr. Kerkoven. And this is my ideal analyst. And I found out later in life that he's a composite of 3 men. One of them is Jung, and the second one is a Dutchman in New York, whose name I forget. The third I don't remember. But
you mean they were based on
they were based on 3 real individuals, right, all analysts. And this was the great supreme analyst for me, perhaps because he knew what service really was to mankind, you know, and also because he was crucified. He was crucified by his patients. This man was so wonderful, so great, that they could not leave him alone, and they really destroyed his life. And this is the story of every great savior, I feel. Do you remember, too, that Ronk used to say, after a while, analysis will be like vaccinated against it. When so many people have had analysis, there won't be any demand for it anymore, right? Yeah. And our friend, you remember David Edgar, always said that the neurotic of today is the man of the future. At least he's the germ of that man of the future. This neurosis is a healthy thing. I don't know, that's paradoxical too. There are 2 ways of looking at that. Either you destroy this world, lock, stock, and barrel, or you adjust to it in a way that you are detached from it. You're living in, that's how the Orientals do, if I read rightly. They,
or you transform it. You
transform it,
do something with it.
but you transform it only by your behavior, I would think. You know what I mean? You don't transform it by battling against the powers that be. That's a waste of energy. And you're putting yourself on the same level.
No, I believe that. No, but I think you have to do all the metamorphoses that you can, as you did.
Each one in himself, you mean?
Someone wrote me a very amusing letter from Australia and said that you had rearranged his molecules. You had changed the direction of the molecules, which I thought was a wonderful expression.
No, that's why.
That's being effective. You see, that is a change.
I know.
And that's what fascinates me about analysis, which I didn't find so much in the Oriental religions.
They have in their legends stories of the 7 rounds that you make on Earth or any planet, and then the dead wood. Ibsen had a phrase, or I forget it now, It's like the dead wood remains and rots on this planet, and those who are alive, what is that thing from the Bible? Alive and the quick and the dead. The quick are transported by spaceships to another planet. In other words, it's a matter of vision. It's a matter of awareness, opening your eyes, seeing the world differently. After all, the only difference in lives is your point of view, how you look at the world. The world does not change. You change. And how do you change? By your different attitude. Whether you see it from down here like the frog, as Spengler said, or up above like the eagle, or still higher like the gods. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
That's the only difference there is, to me.
Yeah.
Because otherwise everything is the same, No matter what you touch and you wish to know about, you end up in a sea of mystery. See, there's no beginning nor end. You can go back as far as you want, forward as far as you want, but you never get to the essence. Isn't that right? It remains. This is the greatest damn thing about the universe, that we can know somehow, recognize somehow, dissect, analyze, do every fucking thing, and we can't grasp it. And it's meant to be that way, don't you know? And there's where our reverence should come in. Before everything, the littlest thing as well as the greatest. The tiniest, the horse shit, as well as the angels. Do you know what I mean? It's all mystery, huh? All impenetrable, as it were, right?